Hi, my name is Rob Golding, and I'm going to do my CRCpedia article on the seminary situation of 1952. That's what Bratt calls this. It's a vague term. I'll explain more what it is. But before we do that, I'm going to describe the founding of Calvin Seminary, and we'll get into the situation. Seminary started 1860s, basically as a way to get ministers into the CRC. We needed ministers, didn't have any, and so individual reverends would train pastors one on one, often in their own parsonages. So G.D. DeYoung calls this the school in parsonage and upper room. In his article in the book Semi-Centennial Volume Theological School and Calvin College. And so after this, a few years of just this one-on-one instruction, 1876 is kind of the official, unofficial beginning of the seminary, because a Reverend G.E. Bohr teaches the first group of students. Now it's not just one-on-one, but he has 6 students, and he's teaching them all together. Harry Boonstra in Our School, Calvin College, and the Christian Reformed Church, he says, quote, "For a number of years, the 3 levels, high school, college, and seminary, were taught by the same instructors, offering a dizzying array of subjects from geography and Dutch literature to church history and isagogics. Isagogics being biblical introduction, things like that. So in 1876, all the students are together. You've got high school, college, and seminary level instruction going on. You've got a bunch of different topics, and they're all taught by really one instructor. That's the beginning of the school. 1894, so almost 20 years later, the first non-ministerial students joined the school, and so now the school has a distinction between the literary department and the theological department, and that's really when you first start to see a distinction between college and seminary, even though it didn't have that in name. Other notable things are that women start in 1902. Women students start in 1902. 1904, Senate approves the junior college. 2 years later, they call it John Calvin Junior College. 2 years after that, they call it Calvin College. And it's not until 1920 that a full 4-year program is offered. Fast forward all the way to 1991, over 100 years after its founding. Now, in 1991, the seminary and the college are distinct entities with 2 different boards. Up until 91, there's one board over the college and the seminary, meaning officially it's one entity. Okay, now when we go into the seminary situation, it's helpful to notice, first of all, you're about halfway into the institution. This is the 50s, started in the 1870s officially. So you're about halfway in, and it's going on obviously in the 50s, which is the time of cultural Christianity. Bratt, in his book describing this seminary situation, cites banner articles which are talking about this guy, Norman Vincent Peale, RCA pastor, teaching things like not cultural Christianity, but things like the prosperity gospel, things that highlight aspects of the gospel that aren't about sin and salvation, but are more about peace of mind and prosperity. And so the banner is saying, hey, we got to watch out. This stuff's going on in our sister denomination. We got to watch out. Socialism's coming over. And in this context, people are looking at the colleges saying, yeah, we got to watch out. It's infiltrating the college and the seminary. So 3 main ways that happens is H.J. Kuyper, the Sacred Seven, and Cornelius Van Til. At this point, I'm not following Bratt so much as I'm following John Timmerman in his book Promises to Keep, a Centennial History of Calvin College. Okay, the situation under these 3 heads. Let me discuss them. H.J. Kuyper. He is a editor of the Banner in 1950, and he is accusing certain people of absorbing socialism. And so he accuses certain people at the college, and and I believe college and seminary. And so in response to this, 18 college and seminary professors reject Kuyper's claims that the school was leaning in a socialist direction. This is in August 26th, 1950. So you have this debate going on in the Banner. You're a socialist. No, I'm not a socialist, back and forth. And so 2 years later, 1952, Kuyper, H.J. Kuyper, the same Kuyper, sends a petition to Synod, and this is what his petition says. Quote, there is no pronounced spiritual atmosphere in our college. So he's lamenting the fact that the college is losing its spirituality, the college is losing its Reformed roots, the college is leaning towards socialism and things like that. That same year, Synod 1952, Timmerman quotes another objection at Synod. And this objection says, quote, why is it, for example, that the important scriptural truth of the necessity of separation from the evil world is so foreign or obnoxious to many of the students, end quote. That's referring to the students of the college. So a lot of people, Kuyper's kind of leading the charge, but you got a lot of people saying, the students of the college don't seem to understand the difference between worldliness and Christianity. They seem to be imbibing kind of this cultural Christianity that says God just wants you to be prosperous. And so as long as you're prosperous, you're a Christian. And we're losing not only our Reformed distinction, but our Christian distinction. And so that's going on in 1952 at Synod. And Synod's response to Kuyper was a rejection of his petition. He didn't really offer any proof. Right, he's calling people socialists, but those people are saying we're not socialists. So there isn't really any proof. And so Synod not only rejected his petition, and part of his petition was to, quote, purify the college. He says, Synod, I want you to purify the college. And so they respond by saying, this is unfounded. You don't have any proof. And so not only did they reject his petition, but they, quote, greatly deplored, end quote, his petition. So they said, this is not the way to go. This is proper decorum. It's not Christian charity here. And so Synod rejects that. That's one leg of the three-legged stool, if you will, of the 1952 seminary situation. The second leg, and I should say there's more things going on here, but these are, as I see it, the three most important. The second leg is the infamous Sacred Seven. These are 7 students at the college and or seminary. It's not clear if they're seminary students or college students, but these are 7 students who are bemoaning a lack of Reformed Christianity, true Christianity, and even earnestness among the professors. So these 7 students write a 15-page manuscript, and they kind of go over the heads of the professors, even the dean, even the president, and they go straight to the board of trustees, and they send this 15-page document to the board of trustees, and these are some of the things that they alleged. Quote, for instance, when a student answered that he had learned from ancient philosophy that the pagan was unable to arrive at truth without the word, that's capital W, word for the Bible, the position of the student was made to appear absurd, end quote. So talking about inclusivism or universalism, and they're saying, students who say you can't have truth without the Bible, they were kind of laughed at in the classroom. That's the allegation. Another one, quote, Professor X seldom came to class less than 10 minutes after the class period had begun, end quote. So they're saying this professor would come late regularly, and other professors did the same thing, so they weren't serious enough. Another allegation regarding the birth control debate says, quote, also, the case of a man with 22 children who is on relief is ridiculed as an example of what happens when anyone takes God's commands too seriously. So they're saying they're debating whether you should have birth control, and they're talking about the psalm that says, blessed is the man whose quiver is full with children. To paraphrase, they're saying, we can't take that too literally. And so the students were saying, look, there's the cultural Christianity right there. We're not even literally reading the Bible. You can read more about that on page 188 and Promises to Keep, some more of those allegations. Again, it's a 15-page document. So that's going on. And so the Board of Trustees responds by standing up a committee, and the committee eventually, after discussing this with everyone, realizes the Sacred Seven are kind of an isolated group. They don't have a lot of support among the student body or anywhere else. And so they just kind of say, listen, we're not doing anything with this document. We're not going to punish you, and we're also not going to punish the professors. And so that kind of fizzles. The third leg of the stool is Cornelius Van Til. He's a visiting apologetics professor at Calvin during this time. And so in May of 1952, he's engaged with a public debate with Dr. William Masslink in the Heckman Memorial Seminary building, and these men are debating the ever important subject of the time, common grace, something that Van Til wrote a lot about. And so Van Til rejected the form of common grace that Dr. Masslink was describing. Timmerman says Van Til rejects common grace. He doesn't. He just describes common grace in a different way. And so Masslink says, well, Van Til, you're rejecting the common grace of Calvin and Bavinck and Kuyper. And Van Til says, well, if we embrace your version of common grace, quote, we might as well blow up the science building with an atom bomb, end quote. Van Til's point being, if anybody can do science, why do we need a Christian college with a science building? Let's just blow it up. We might as well just study the Bible at Christian school and let atheists teach us science, or whoever. You don't need a Christian studying science. So Van Til later had to recant that in word, but the underlying point he didn't recant. He said that was hyperbolic. Shouldn't have said let's blow it up. But I am affirming, Van Til says, that we need to understand the radical antithesis. There's no common ground between the believer and unbeliever. And so that was another huge point of debate in 1952 going on at the seminary. And so all three of these things in the context of the 1950s kind of illuminate to us that there's a lot of tension going on at the seminary. And in conclusion, I don't have time to read the whole quote, but Timmerman on 194 describes all this and says this is part of our DNA. We need to, as thinking Christians, engage with these things and not run from them.